Harley-Davidson's newest lineup isn't just making noise, it's crashing in value. Riders who thought they were buying legends are now stuck with bikes dropping thousands on the resale market. And here's the part that matters. One of these models might be sitting in your garage right now. Dealers can't move them, owners can't unload them, and the losses are piling up. Stay with me, because by the end of this list, you'll know which Harley to avoid before it drains your wallet. Number 7. Harley-Davidson 48. Stripped-down attitude and raw style once made this bobber the symbol of rebellion, but in 2025 its limitations are impossible to ignore. But in 2025, that same stripped-back nature has become its greatest weakness, and the market has turned its back on this once beloved bobber. What was once considered a symbol of raw Harley individuality is now a motorcycle that owners struggle to hold on to without losing serious value. Underneath its bold design, the 48 carries an air-cooled engine measuring 1,202 cubic centimeters. That motor produces around 60 horsepower, which on paper should be plenty for city riding and short weekend blasts. Riders who first tested the bike were often impressed by its punchy character, but the limits show up quickly when compared to the demands of today's highways. Torque delivery is respectable, with around 73 pound-feet available to pull the machine forward. The grunt down low gives it a healthy start at traffic lights, and many riders say it feels lively around town. But once on longer rides, the limits become clear. Sustained speed leaves the motor feeling strained, and the lack of refinement stands out when lined up against modern cruisers that now offer smoother delivery and better long-haul comfort. The braking system is basic, built around a single disc at the front and another single disc at the rear, with optional anti-lock braking system support. While adequate for short trips, the system lacks the authority that riders expect from a 550-pound motorcycle. Under heavier loads or emergency stops, the limits of this setup reveal themselves. Suspension is handled with a 49mm front fork, equipped with cartridge damping paired at the rear with coil-over adjustable shocks. Travel is short, giving the bike a slammed look, but that same choice makes city potholes and uneven back roads punishing over time. What looks tough in photos often feels brutal in practice. When placed on a scale, the 48 tips in at around 552 pounds. For a bike of its size, that is a hefty figure. Combined with its compact stance and forward controls, the weight can make slow-speed maneuvering awkward for riders who expected an easy city cruiser. The seat height rests at 28 inches, low enough to appeal to a wide range of riders. This makes it approachable for those new to cruisers, but it also means taller riders often find their knees cramped and their hips strained on rides longer than an hour. The stretched-out posture photographs well, but wears thin quickly in reality. When the 48 first arrived on showroom floors, the starting price hovered around $11,000. That number once felt fair for a factory custom that carried serious visual presence. Today, however, the motorcycle world has shifted. Riders expect technology, range, and comfort to match the style. The 48 delivers style in spades but falls short on everything else. The 48's peanut tank has always been a talking point. Holding just over 2 gallons, it is iconic but impractical. Riders often find themselves searching for gas stations after fewer than 90 miles. In a time when riders want to stretch every dollar and enjoy longer rides, this design flaw stands out as a deal breaker. The dashboard follows the same stripped theme. A simple analog speedometer sits alone, with no fuel gauge, no ride modes, and no advanced features. Against a landscape of modern cruisers offering connectivity, traction control, and clear digital displays, the 48 feels frozen in time. For older riders who remember when this bike symbolized rebellion, it may still carry emotional weight. This stripped-down bobber shows how style without substance can age poorly, setting the stage for a different kind of failure in the Harley lineup. If this countdown is opening your eyes, take a moment right now to hit the like button. It shows this content matters to riders like you. Drop a comment below and share your own Harley story. Your voice may guide someone else away from costly mistakes. Number 6. Harley-Davidson Street Rod 750. Urban riders were promised a nimble entry point into the Harley family, yet this middleweight experiment ended up stranded between two worlds. But in 2025, the reality is far different. Instead of carving its own niche, the Street Rod has become one of the most overlooked bikes in Harley's lineup, caught between cruiser tradition and sport bike ambition. At its core, the street rod carries a liquid-cooled engine measuring 749 cubic centimeters. That motor produces around 70 horsepower, a respectable figure for a middleweight machine. Torque delivery sits near 47 pound-feet, giving the bike decent pull in the mid-range. On paper, these numbers should have set it apart from the standard street model. Stopping power comes from dual discs up front with dual piston calipers supported by a single disc at the rear. The setup includes optional anti-lock braking system technology, something Harley positioned as a selling point for new riders. In practice, however, the braking is merely adequate for quick city stops, and riders often found it uninspiring when pushed harder. Suspension was designed to be more aggressive than the base street, with inverted 43mm front forks and twin piggyback shocks at the rear. This combination gave the bike sharper handling on smooth pavement, but the firm setup also meant harsh feedback over rough city streets. The sporty posture clashed with the weight of the frame, leaving it in an awkward middle ground. The street rod tips the scales at around 516 pounds wet. That figure is light compared to Harley's touring machines, but still heavy for what was marketed as a nimble city bike. The added bulk becomes noticeable at parking lot speeds and makes the bike less inviting for new riders who expected something easy to manage. Seat height is set at 29.8 inches. While taller than many Harley cruisers, this dimension put shorter riders at a disadvantage, forcing them to stretch to reach the pavement. Combined with flat handlebars and a cramped cockpit, the ergonomics turned out to be uncomfortable for both small and tall riders. When it was first released, the street rod carried a starting price of $8,699. Positioned as a stepping stone into the Harley brand, it was supposed to offer affordability with modern styling. Yet the value equation did not hold. Buyers found better-equipped alternatives from Japanese and European manufacturers, and resale demand dried up quickly. Styling was another dividing line. With its tall tail section, compact tank, and modern lines, the street rod lacked the unmistakable cruiser identity Harley riders expected. It looked too modern for traditionalists and too heavy for sport-minded riders. Customization options were limited as well, with few aftermarket parts available to personalize the machine. In 2025, the street rod stands as a bike without a home. Caught between audiences, this middleweight proves that identity matters just as much as performance, leading us toward another model that wrestled with its purpose. Before we hit the number 5, check the description for my 2025 helmets, jackets, gloves, and riding accessories. Number 5. Harley-Davidson Pan America 1250 Standard. Adventure ambitions carried this tall machine into dealerships, but the attempt to break into a new segment left riders questioning Harley's direction. But in 2025, the story has shifted. What was once marketed as a groundbreaking departure now stands as one of the hardest motorcycles in the lineup to sell. A machine with identity issues that never found the audience it was built to serve. At the heart of the Pan America is the Revolution Max engine sized at 1,250 cubic centimeters. It produces around 150 horsepower, a figure that places it among the most powerful adventure bikes on the market. Riders expected a machine that could surge on open highways and still hold its own in the dirt. Torque delivery is measured at 94 pound-feet. On paper, that output suggested long-haul strength combined with trail readiness. But for many riders, the experience did not live up to expectations. The torque curve is there, but the feel is not as refined or as confidence-inspiring as the established competition from Europe. Braking is handled by dual front 4-piston calipers and a rear single-piston floating caliper. The setup provides consistent stopping power and is supported by a cornering-enhanced anti-lock braking system. In practice, it is dependable, but the bite and feedback are not as sharp as what seasoned adventure riders find on rivals. Suspension duties fall to Showa semi-active components, both front and rear. Riders have access to electronic preload and damping adjustments. On the surface, that makes the bike flexible, shifting between road touring and light off-road settings. Yet many owners have reported glitchy responses and a lack of smoothness compared to the intuitive systems found on long-standing competitors. When placed on a scale, The Pan America weighs around 562 pounds wet. That number is competitive for the class, but it still intimidates riders new to tall adventure machines. It can feel manageable in controlled conditions, but at slow speeds or off pavement, the weight becomes a challenge. Seat height varies with the adaptive suspension system, but in standard trim, it sits near 31 inches. The adjustability was designed to make the bike friendlier to a wide range of riders. However, for many traditional Harley enthusiasts, the tall stance is a shock compared to the low-slung machines they are accustomed to. The Pan America entered the market with a starting price of $17,319. That positioned it against the European heavyweights it was meant to challenge. On value alone, it seemed like Harley was offering an attractive package, but real-world execution, coupled with a lack of dealer expertise in adventure service, has kept resale demand soft. Pan America is not a failure of engineering numbers, but of brand identity. For Harley loyalists, it looks and feels too different to be embraced. A bold adventure gamble that fell short, its story clears the path to a machine that redefined a classic name but lost its spirit along the way. Number 4. Harley-Davidson Sportster S. Generations of riders held the Sportster name as sacred, yet its modern reinvention divided the faithful and left resale demand uncertain. But in 2025, the reception is far from the glory once imagined. Riders expected a machine that would honor tradition while offering the thrill of modern muscle, yet what they found was a motorcycle that left many loyalists cold and puzzled. Beneath its futuristic profile, the Sportster S carries the Revolution max engine sized at 1,250 cubic centimeters. It delivers around 121 horsepower, a figure that shocked many who had grown accustomed to more modest outputs in Harley's smaller frames. That kind of raw muscle sounds good on paper, and can certainly hold its own in the cruiser segment. Torque is measured at 94 pound-feet, available across a broad band. In practice, the acceleration is quick and responsive, giving the bike sharp pull off the line. For riders seeking hard launches and a sense of raw strength, the numbers deliver. Yet the sensation has been described as clinical rather than soulful, leaving veterans with the sense that the character has been engineered rather than born. Braking is centered on a single front disc with a 4-piston radial-mounted caliper and a rear disc paired with a 2-piston floating caliper. Anti-lock braking system technology comes standard. While functional, this setup feels undersized for a machine carrying such high-performance claims. Confidence at high speeds is not as commanding as riders expect. Suspension is handled by an inverted Showa front fork, matched with a single rear shock that offers preload adjustment. The geometry is intended to provide nimble handling and aggressive cornering, yet combined with the fat front tire, the system creates twitchy steering and a sense of imbalance at low speeds. Riders who transition from older cruisers often find the bike unpredictable in city conditions. The wet weight sits at around 502 pounds. Compared to the heavy cruisers in the Harley stable, that sounds refreshing. But the weight distribution and aggressive ergonomics make it less forgiving than its scale number suggests. The low-slung stance amplifies the impression of instability, particularly for taller riders. The seat height measures at 28.9 inches. This makes it approachable for many, but the aggressive bar and peg position often forces an awkward crouch. Comfort diminishes quickly, especially for older riders or those seeking all-day mileage. For a name once associated with accessible cruising, the new posture feels foreign. The Sportster S debuted with a starting price of $14,999. Positioned as a bridge between traditional Harley heritage and modern technology, it looked reasonable on launch. But in 2025, resale values are falling, with riders hesitant to invest in a motorcycle that feels disconnected from its past. The styling underscores the divide, with minimalist lighting, a digital dash, and oversized exhausts running low. The Sportster S has the profile of a futuristic concept rather than a timeless cruiser. While some admire the bold departure, others see it as a rejection of the identity that defined the Sportster line for decades. In the end, the Sportster S is not short on performance, numbers, or technology. What it lacks is the intangible essence that makes Harley riders stay loyal for life. The clash between heritage and reinvention is obvious here, preparing us for a touring machine that tried to blend aggression with tradition and struggled to deliver. Number 3. Harley-Davidson Street Glide ST. Performance styling and bold marketing built expectations high, but this touring bagger quickly revealed the cracks in its promise of balance. For a moment, it captured attention. Riders who wanted aggressive lines and extra muscle without stepping away from the brand's traditions saw it as the perfect fit. But in 2025, the reality has grown less flattering. The Street Glide Saint has become a motorcycle caught between audiences, struggling to justify its place and holding less value in the eyes of buyers. Power comes from the Milwaukee 8 117 engine, displacing 1,923 cubic centimeters. Output is rated around 106 horsepower, an impressive figure that makes the bike one of the stronger options in Harley's touring stable. The sound and feel of the motor carry the signature thrum that loyalists expect, and on paper it looks like a powerhouse. Torque is measured at 127 pound-feet. This provides heavy pull in the low and mid-range, which is where most riders spend their time. Acceleration feels forceful when rolling out of town or overtaking on the interstate. Yet, the performance is counterbalanced by the bike's scale and design, which dilute the thrill that these numbers suggest. Braking is handled by dual discs with 4-piston calipers at the front and a single 4-piston caliper at the rear. Cornering-enhanced anti-lock braking system technology is included, giving reassurance when managing this much mass. The system is capable, though not exceptional compared to the sharper and more responsive setups found on rival performance baggers. Suspension consists of a Showa dual bending valve front fork, paired with emulsion rear shocks. The intention was to deliver improved handling while maintaining comfort. In practice, the suspension is serviceable on smooth highways, but reveals stiffness in urban riding and can feel unsettled when carving back roads. Riders who expected sport touring sharpness are often disappointed. On the scale, the Street Glide Saint weighs about 827 pounds wet. That heft becomes noticeable in tight spaces or during low-speed maneuvering. Once underway at highway pace, stability improves. But the weight remains a reminder that this machine straddles the line between performance ambition and full touring size. The seat height measures 26.7 inches, a figure that makes the bike accessible to a broad range of riders. While approachable, the ergonomics maintain the stretched-out cruiser feel that works well for some but becomes tiring for others on longer rides. Comfort is solid, but not quite at the level of Harley's more dedicated touring models. The original starting price for the Street Glide Saint was $31,999. Buyers once accepted that premium, expecting the bike to be a new standard for aggressive touring. In 2025, however, the used market has cooled significantly. Riders who favor fixed fairing stability have chosen the Road Glide Saint instead, leaving the Street Glide Saint overlooked. The Street Glide Saint is not a poor motorcycle, but it lacks a clear identity. Overlooked in favor of its sibling, this touring bagger highlights the risks of misjudged design choices, opening the door to a heavyweight once viewed as untouchable. You have seen how quickly once proud Harleys can lose value. More reveals are still ahead, and you will not want to miss them. Subscribe right now, join this channel, and stay prepared. Protect your wallet, your pride, and your ride. The next hard truth is coming soon. Number 2. Harley-Davidson Ultra Limited. Luxury touring was once defined by this heavyweight, but the motorcycle that symbolized long-haul comfort now finds itself out of step with modern demand. But in 2025, the reality is shifting. What was once the crown jewel for long-haul riders is now facing a wave of depreciation as modern buyers move toward lighter, leaner machines that better fit today's riding demands. At the center of the Ultra Limited sits the Milwaukee 8 114 engine, measuring 1,868 cubic centimeters. This power plant produces around 90 horsepower and delivers a steady flow of 123 pound-feet of torque. The motor provides strong roll-on acceleration, but the sheer mass of the bike demands every ounce of that power just to keep it feeling lively on the open road. The braking system is anchored by dual discs at the front, supported by 4-piston calipers and a single disc at the rear. Cornering-enhanced anti-lock braking system support is standard, offering added confidence when managing the motorcycle's substantial weight. Still, many riders report that stopping power feels merely adequate given the scale of the machine, especially when loaded with luggage and a passenger. Suspension is managed by dual bending valve front forks paired with hand-adjustable rear shocks. The setup provides a plush ride on smooth interstates, but it can feel vague and unsettled when the pavement turns rough. For a bike of this class, comfort is expected, but the handling precision lags behind what some of today's touring competitors now deliver. On the scale, the Ultra Limited comes in at around 900 pounds wet. That figure is imposing even by Harley touring standards. At low speeds, the heft can be intimidating, and riders often describe tight maneuvers or parking lot handling as a workout. While stable once moving, the weight remains a factor that keeps some modern buyers away. The seat height measures 29.1 inches. It is a figure designed to make the bike approachable for a wide range of riders, allowing firm footing for many. But the overall size and width of the touring frame mean that comfort is still best reserved for experienced riders accustomed to managing such mass. When it was new, the Ultra Limited carried a starting price of just over $31,000. For that investment, buyers received full touring luggage, an infotainment system, heated grips, and every luxury feature Harley could fit into the frame. It was meant to be the last word in American touring motorcycles. In 2025, however, resale demand is soft. Riders are turning to sleeker baggers or stripped-down builds that provide more freedom and less complexity. The Ultra Limited remains a capable machine, but the market has decided it is too heavy, too expensive to maintain, and too far removed from the kind of direct riding connection many now prefer. Luxury and weight no longer guarantee lasting appeal, a truth that leads directly to Harley's flagship showcase, one that illustrates excess at its very peak. Number 1. Harley-Davidson Road, Glide CVO. Flagship prestige and unmatched presence once set this machine above the rest, but in today's market, even the crown jewel struggles to hold its shine. But in 2025, the story is different. What was once the most sought-after touring machine is now one of the hardest to hold value, a heavyweight investment that quickly turns into a financial burden for its owners. Powering the Road Glide CVO is the Milwaukee 8-117 engine, displacing 1,923 cubic centimeters. It produces around 105 horsepower, more than enough to move a motorcycle of this size down the highway with authority. The motor still has that traditional Harley feel, but the demands of a bike this heavy push the engine to its limits more often than riders might expect. Torque comes in at roughly 126 pound-feet, available low in the rev range. This gives the Road Glide CVO that signature surge when rolling on the throttle, perfect for passing trucks or carrying a full load of luggage. Yet while the numbers are impressive, the experience is muted by the sheer scale of the bike, and many riders find the sensation less exciting than they imagined. The braking system includes dual front discs with 4-piston calipers and a single rear disc. Cornering-enhanced anti-lock braking system technology is standard, as expected at this level. While effective, riders note that bringing nearly 1,000 pounds of motorcycle to a stop requires extra planning, and confidence is not as strong as one would hope for at this price point. Suspension is managed by dual bending valve forks at the front and hand-adjustable shocks at the rear. The ride is smooth on long stretches of pavement, but in city conditions or rougher roads, the system feels overwhelmed. For a motorcycle designed to be the pinnacle of touring comfort, the suspension often highlights the compromise between luxury features and raw usability. On the scale, the Road Glide CVO weighs roughly 975 pounds wet. That kind of mass makes it intimidating at low speeds, where balance and muscle are both required. Many older riders who once aspired to own the bike now find its size too difficult to manage, especially with a passenger and full touring luggage on board. The seat height measures 29.9 inches. This keeps the bike approachable for a wide range of riders, but with such a wide frame and tall stance, flat-footing it at stops can still be a challenge. The ergonomic design emphasizes long-distance comfort once underway, though maneuverability at low speeds remains a concern. The starting price of the Road Glide CVO when new was $54,900. That number bought a machine with top-shelf paint, chrome accents, full luggage, heated grips, and the latest infotainment system. It was billed as the ultimate touring package. In 2025, resale has collapsed. Once a premium touring icon, the Road Glide CVO now suffers under complexity, weight, and high service costs. It remains respected in presence, but for older riders, it proves Harley excess no longer guarantees lasting value. Every Harley tells a story, but not all stories end with pride. In 2025, some bikes are turning into burdens, while others still hold their ground. If this list helped you steer clear of a costly mistake, show support by liking and subscribing. Stay with us, because the ride ahead will reveal even more truths every Harley rider needs before making their next big decision.